Welcome back to the DRH show. I'm delighted to have a thoughtful voice in neurodiversity and mental health research. She's a licensed social worker and writer, now embarking on a PhD at the University of Salford in Manchester as part of the Leverhulme Trust's Aural Diversity Doctoral Research Hub. She will be investigating Anauralia in musicians. I hope I pronounced it right. It's a little known form of neurodiversity linked to the aphantasia spectrum. Her work explores how variations in auditory and visual imagery shape memory, grief, and mental health, raising important questions about human experience. She also brings her own lived experience with schizoaffective disorder, giving depth and perspective to her research and advocacy. Neesa Suma, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, yes, my name is Sunar. It's Neesa
Sunar.
Sunar. No, it's okay.
Yeah. So, Nisa, tell us a bit about your background. I already said that you just started your PhD, but just give us a sense of, what you what your background is and what started you from, doing a PhD. How you ended up doing what you're doing, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's important to note the whole journey as because of it's contributed to how I got here. So, I in childhood I was a musician. I played violin, and then I switched to viola, and I was quite serious in my study. By the time I was in high school, I really knew I wanted to continue as a musician. So then for college, I went to the Jacob School of Music at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and I completed a bachelor's there. I wanted to be a performer, perhaps in an orchestra, this sort of thing. During that study, as I finished my senior year, I developed schizoaffective disorder, which was unfortunate. And I had to really think of a different career because it wasn't working. So I did teaching for a few years, music teaching, violin lessons, some classroom teaching. My health was still bad. And then in around 2012, I discontinued all work and just focused on rehabilitation. I started taking medications that really changed things for the better. But I really couldn't return to music as a profession. It's just I had lost all my contacts. It was very hard to just jump back in. So I embarked on another path for my career. I joined mental health as a profession. So I trained in peer support in around 2014. Then I worked as a peer specialist in the New York City housing mental health system in Queens specifically. And I did this for 6 years. And then during that time, I completed a master's in social work. Then I graduated right before the pandemic. And then after getting my LMSW license, my licensed master social work license, I started working in telehealth. The pandemic opened a lot of opportunities for telehealth therapy jobs and so forth. So I did this really for the last 4 years. I've worked in telehealth. I'm very close to meeting the requirements for the independent license. I then found this, I've wanted to combine my expertise in music and mental health for quite a while. And I also have gained awareness about the condition of aphantasia, which is a lesser known type of neurodiversity, which I'll be talking about today. But I really wanted to kind of re-enter or return to musical work in a sort of researching capacity by investigating aphantasia and Anauralia in musicians. I'll be talking about that today. So I was just looking online, trying to find doctoral programs that had that sort of capacity for supervision, because it's a very obscure term at this time. There's very little awareness about aphantasia and Anauralia. So 2 years ago, I couldn't find the supervision, but this past year, I found that the University of Salford had a scholarship opportunity for people investigating aural diversity. So AURAL, auditory, essentially aural diversity, people who hear differently, whether due to tinnitus or autistic hearing also qualifies, conditions like hyperacusis, misophonia. So my topic on investigating Anauralia and aphantasia in musicians is a topic that no one is doing at this time, to my knowledge. So my application, I believe, stood out, and I was accepted for this scholarship. So now I will meet my supervisor shortly after this meeting. So I'm quite excited to get started.
Brilliant. That's really a fascinating journey, and thank you for sharing so much about your lived experience when it comes to mental health, and also your insights about aphantasia and anauralia. You already touched upon what it is and what anauralia is, but what I'd like to hear from you, Neesa, is how do these forms of neurodiversity kind of intersect with music? Particularly in, you mentioned your musical background earlier, particularly with conservatory training, where obviously like certain skills and mental rehearsals are, essential.
Definitely. So I think to maybe if I could first to quickly define
Yeah,
aphantasia
yeah, sure,
and
of
anauralia.
course.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'll be very quick. So aphantasia I'll start with because that was kind of what first was researched and identified and defined. So aphantasia is the experience of image-free thinking, mind's eye blindness. So if you try to imagine, close your eyes and imagine an apple. Most people can create some sort of visual representation of an apple in the mind's eye that looks real, has color. Maybe if you, I don't know, if you eat it, you can taste it. This sort of sensory imagery in the imagination, but focusing on the visual, let's say. People with aphantasia think in darkness. So there's no ability to recreate images, memories, faces of familiar people in the mind. So it's total darkness. So I have this. Anauralia is the auditory equivalent. So most people, particularly musicians, it would be assumed, is that they can create sound in the imagination, music that sounds real. We know commonly an earworm, little looping thing of a snatch of music in the ear that sounds real, so to speak, or thinking of a dog barking and you can hear that as if it's real. So anauralia is silent mind inability to hear that. So this brings a lot of fascinating questions for music. In current and really for centuries, music pedagogy has assumed that in order to create music, you have to be able to hear music in the imagination first, and then you interpret what you're hearing and you bring that into the world. So a lot of professors, at least in the conservatory settings of today, they'll instruct their students, hear it in your mind, and then that is used as a way to develop a style or an interpretation for music as it's performed. So if somebody has anauralia, that cognitive process is not available. It's really neurologically based, which I can explain later. So that the anauralia certainly impacts the inner hearing. It's also called audiation. Now, with mental practice, this is also related. Mental practice is this concept that was, I think, formulated first in sports psychology in the 1970s. Certainly the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, popularized this concept of internal preparation, performance, science, and so forth. So for musicians, again, mental practice is used as a way to prepare for performances, to abate performance anxiety and so forth. So mental practice would entail recreating of sound, of course, but also the visual of playing, the tactile sensations of what it feels like to be in that performance. So holding the instrument, posture, and also awareness of the environment that you're in, recreating that in the mind. And this is a skill that many musicians use to prepare for performance, and teachers will instruct, assuming that a person has this capacity. So again, people with aphantasia or people on this spectrum of experience are not able to do this. And the reasons behind that are neurologically based. It can't be taught.
Mhm. That's such really a striking point, Nisa, and because it challenges a really deep assumption of in music education and music in general about imagination being a prerequisite for performance. But it makes me wonder whether musicians with these conditions might actually develop alternative strengths, like for instance, heightened reliance on muscle memory or visual cues that could broaden our understanding of musical skill.
This is a really excellent question, and it's sort of the question that my supervisor asked when I first said I want to do this study. He was like, what are the adaptive skills that people with aphantasia and anauralia create in order to engage in musical work? So that will be the focus of my studies. And there's some preliminary insight that I could provide. So in the process of preparing my application, with really preparing this whole topic, which I'll be investigating, I found the work of Tim Stevenson. He was a doctoral candidate in piano at Indiana University, where I actually got my bachelor's. And he did some really investigation into aphantasia, and the total aphantasia spectrum, so including the auditory and the visual. And he surmised that cues for teaching students with the expectation that they can create imagery doesn't help people with aphantasia. What helps is to focus on the kinesthetic, the physical, and the kinesthetic technique. Also, emotional expression, maybe interpreting music, but through an emotional means, and also having awareness of the structure of a piece. So, like sonata form, you're playing the exposition, the beginning, you're playing the development, the middle maybe is a little more stormy, returning to the recapitulation again. So having this awareness of these different aspects of musicianship. Adaptive skills. That's really what I hope to collect information on. I think for me, as a violist, I know, like, if I look at music, like sheet music, I don't hear what I'm looking at, but instead I'll think, if I see, let's say treble clef, because let me just think in violin, treble clef. If I see a note on the middle line of a staff, somebody might think that's a B, or think B, or somebody may hear the note. For me, I'm like, finger, my finger goes there on this part of the violin. So I really do hope to collect these different experiences that people have.
Mm-hmm. It sounds really like it sounds really like it opens a lot of it opens door for rethinking traditional pedagogy, if you will, especially if kinesthetic approaches can make music education more inclusive. So, Neesa, in your upcoming study, what insights are you hoping to gain from musicians' lived experiences?
Definitely. So my proposed research, which I'll be confirming hopefully today, I've proposed to first conduct a study, which would be distributed to, I'm hoping to find eligible participants for the study, survey, sorry. The survey, basically musicians who have some sort of conservatory experience. That could be like 1 year in a pre-college setting or college setting, trying to make it as broad as possible. So while also focusing on the conservatory setting, because that's kind of the focus of the pedagogy, that's focusing on the mind's eye and so forth. So the survey will inquire about the range of experiences that are related to audiation, inner hearing, and mental practice. I am hoping to recruit as many musicians with anauralia and or aphantasia as possible. So yeah, I think with the survey, there'll be a couple of assessments that will be integrated into it. I have to figure out the design of that. But there will be a lot of open answers about people, where people can write about how they audiate or lack thereof, how they engage in mental practice, and trying to identify themes, variations, and also those insights would be compared with their scores on assessments that would determine if they have aphantasia or anauralia. That's the first part of the study. Then after the surveys, I hope to identify about 20 people, at least, who have anauralia and or aphantasia, and then I can do case study interviews with them to really gain insight into their adaptive experiences.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really like a thoughtful design, because you're keeping your scope broad while centering on context that could reveal challenges and unique adaptations. But Neesa, since your study is shaped not only by academic interests, you've alluded to your lived experience earlier, and you've openly spoken about your schizoaffective disorder. So, how has your personal experience shaped the way you approach both academic and advocacy work?
Yeah, this is a big question. To clarify, I have the lived experience of schizoaffective. I also have total aphantasia myself. So I have the auditory, the visual, and also the other three core senses, tactile, olfactory, and gustatory. I mean, my lived experience, I would say, as a person with total aphantasia, is that I really navigated a learning environment, both in youth and also especially in conservatory, where there were bits of confusion that I experienced in my training, and I kind of hit a wall or a plateau in my study because I couldn't apply this advice that was being issued on using the mind's eye to prepare for performance. So also I was kind of, my progress was a bit slow because I could only really hear music if I played it. I couldn't imagine it. I think also it's a bit of a complicated experience, but I also began developing schizophrenia at this time as well. So it was a very confusing time. I think, though, in terms of lived experience as a person with like aphantasia, Anauralia, once I discovered this condition that I had back in around 2018, 2020, I started to gain new interest in the instrument, because previously I thought, I can't do this. I just can't, I'm not getting it. When I discovered this neurodiversity that I have, I started to challenge myself to think about the instrument in new ways, focusing more on the kinesthetic, the construction of the instrument, actually. And knowing that I had this different way of thinking, I started to allow myself to think of the instrument in different ways. So I don't know if we have time to explain, but I started to think of like concepts of sort of ancient Greece, in a sense. The discovery attributed to Pythagoras, where he discovered intervals occurring at ratios. So really kind of thinking about the instrument more in this way, like if I put my finger in the string right in the middle, it'll create an octave. But thinking more of it in this way, and then I sort of gained a new renaissance in my own enthusiasm for the instrument, and I really began to enjoy it again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Neesa, because your experience really shows how neurodiversity and mental health aren't separate boxes. They often overlap in subtle ways. But what do you think researchers and clinicians should understand better about these intersections?
Yeah, intersections between, would you say, music and...
Yeah, music, live experience, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a big question. I think that the department that I'm joining, the Leverhulme Trust Aural Diversity Doctoral Research Hub, they had an interest in welcoming students who are researching conditions that they themselves have. And I think that for me, having the total aphantasia, it highlights, it allows me to generate questions, research questions that are relevant to the condition, or identifying challenges in pre-existing structures, or just noticing questions that are not being answered yet through current research, and then introducing new insights for research. Lived experience in terms of the mental illness part of it, that's I think that's kind of in a similar boat. I try not to fully identify with, schizoaffective as my identity. It's certainly an experience that has really shaped the trajectory of my life, but it's also, it's just, it's something I deal with and I have to take care of. I think maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Neesa, you've really touched on how personal insight can generate new research questions, which is really important. If you're trying to, connect with people who have similar life experience as you. But these conditions also go much deeper emotionally. They intersect with with themes like grief, memory, identity. So, what have you found most striking about how they reshape people's experience of life?
Like aphantasia specifically?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll speak specifically on aphantasia just because there's more research about it. Also, the term aphantasia, it generally indicates the visual component, but it's also understood as a multisensory concept. So people with aphantasia, more than half have deficient sensory perception in the other senses as well. So yeah, in terms of how aphantasia impacts people, there's like a sort of set of experiences that people with aphantasia share, but no one person has, the same experiences as another person, and there are always outliers who don't fit the mold of what folks with aphantasia experience. So there is neuroimaging studies that substantiate the experience of aphantasia. Essentially, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm still trying to get this together. But there's essentially neuroimaging studies have shown that aphants have reduced activity in visual areas of the brain, and there's impaired top-down signaling. So to have a cognition, say I want to think about a horse, make that decision. The mechanism that connects that command to the actual visual of a horse is not happening. So essentially, people with aphantasia, the shared traits can include that we can't recall autobiographical memories, certainly not as pictures. So people may have a limited ability to recall the past. Some people have SDAM, severely deficient autobiographical memory. So a difficulty in recalling past memories. Oftentimes people will remember their life as a list of facts. On this day I did that and I was here. On this day I did that and I was there. From this day to this day, this sort of thing. So some tasks can be inaccessible to people with aphantasia, like guided imagery meditations, which are often used in therapy, reading books, especially fiction. People struggle with really seeing the imagery that's evoked in a book, or painting from memory or a picture in the mind. People may have to instead draw from reference. Again, there are people who, defy each of these and are able to do guided imagery. I'd say maybe not, but they may benefit from it at the same time in some other adaptive manner. Other things I could share more. Aphants have intact spatial memory skills, so they're able to sort of remember objects and their positions in environments. Yeah, also people with aphantasia may grieve less. So if somebody passes away, or if you're, permanently separated from somebody, like, graduating school and then moving to another city, that sort of separation, people with aphantasia may grieve less about those separations because the person is not summoned in the imagination as in memory. Some people with aphantasia have prosopagnosia, which is face blind, not able to identify faces of familiar people. So that, yeah, those are some traits.
Mhm. It's really clear, Neesa, that your research has huge potential impact, but there's also practical hurdles along the way. And I understand currently you're fundraising to cover your expenses, such as healthcare costs. So, would you like to share a bit about your GoFundMe and how contributions directly support your journey?
Definitely. Yeah. I'm very grateful that you're, just allowing me to speak. And I really want to emphasize that what I'm offering here is just the opportunity to speak about what I'm researching or proposing to research is, I feel, a worthy cause. So I had to pay upfront fees with the visa, which I had put on credit to get to school here. Although I've been awarded the grant, the funding, these upfront fees just were a little larger than expected. So I'm hoping to raise funds to just recoup the losses that I took financially to start this program. That included the student visa. I had to buy 5 years worth of NHS health insurance as an international student. There was fees with the flight and just getting set up. Also, I've raised more than half so far what I'm hoping to target. Any surplus funds also would allow for me to pay for healthcare, consulting services with my US-based psychiatric team. So it's a clinic called Doromind, and they specialize in clozapine treatment for schizophrenia and related disorders. So yeah, it has been a very difficult journey, I think, in getting expert healthcare for my schizophrenia, my schizoaffective. And Doromind has really turned my life around in a miraculous way. And now I'm able to do this PhD because of their support. Clozapine is a difficult drug with a difficult history, but they are such experts in managing it, and my health has improved. And I realized that to stay in contact with them on a consulting basis will ensure the best of health for myself to continue with this degree successfully. I really do believe in the importance of what I'm seeking to research. Certainly, it's an original topic.
It's really encouraging how that kind of consistent support can provide stability that you need to support yourself both personally and academically. Lovely talking to you, Neesa, but before we wrap up, let's end on a lighter note with some quick fire questions to get to know you a bit better.
Okay.
So I've got three quick fire questions. First one is, what were you afraid of as a child?
I don't know if I could answer that. I was going to say my dad. He's kind of like Darth Vader.
And what is your favorite word in another language?
A favorite word in another language?
Yeah.
I don't know. It has to be something in German. I don't know, though.
My German is quite rusty. Okay. It probably means good. Okay. And if you hadn't been doing what you're doing, what would you have pursued in your life?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'd still be a therapist, maybe. Yeah.
Mhm. And finally, the floor is all yours. What should people take away from today's conversation?
Yeah. Aphantasia and Anauralia are very real things, and I really encourage anybody who is in a capacity to do so. Please do research, contribute to the academia that's developing around aphantasia, Anauralia, and other sensory imaging experiences. There's not enough research, and I think it's a big opportunity.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic note to end on, Neesa. Your insights into aphantasia, Anauralia, and the wider questions about neurodiversity and mental health have been incredibly illuminating. Neesa, Sunar, it's been a real pleasure having you here on the DRH show, and I look forward to following your PhD journey and the impact of your research. Thank you.
Thank you so much.